Spring football for NC State gets underway on Tuesday, but first, they had to kick it off with a red light special.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers can join today and get $150 back in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Happy Tuesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. We were away for a couple days, had a couple technical difficulties to work through. Kenton now has fully functional internet. We are on a new publishing system, which, of course, if you're listening to this, sounds no different to you all, but just a different method for us to post our content each and every day. But getting into the Tuesday news here, another transfer is on the board for NC State football. Auburn transfer linebacker Cam Riley will bring his talents with him to Raleigh for the 2024 season. This, of course, comes the day before spring practice gets going. But Kenton, what does this kind of last-minute addition mean for this linebacking core?
You know, Motel 6, Wolfpack recruiting, they'll leave the light on for you, okay? Right. Because at this point, there's no point in turning it off. But very seriously, this is a linebacking core that if we didn't trust Tony Gibson the way that we do, we would be deeply worried. You know, with Jalen Scott's surprise exit, which, you know, some people are saying, oh, well, he walked on senior night. You should have saw it coming. Yeah, so did Aiden White, if I do recall correctly. And he's back. You know what I mean? Like there's that, but with his exit and, of course, losing Peyton Wilson, you know, you're sitting here kind of wondering, what is the linebacker core going to look like? Our leading and second leading tackler both gone, and then we get a building block like this. You know, then Gibson gets his hands on a guy like this. And you know, you and I have talked before about how it almost seems like Tony Gibson has the super soldier serum to give out the guys because, you know, they walk in as Steve Rogers and they leave as Captain America every single time. And I'm excited to see what he can do with a young man of this stature, whether or not he decides to put his hand in the dirt, whether or not he decides to play him at strong side, whether or not he, you know, there's a lot of different ways this can go. I'm just excited because this is this young man is a piece that has a lot of different abilities and skills. And of course that size, but the bendiness, the ability to move in coverage at that size, it gives you a lot of flexibility, a lot of options with what you want to do with him.
Bringing with him a good amount of SEC experience. He's played, I think, at least 2 full seasons in the SEC with Auburn. Taking this past year, he played in every single game, tallied 31 total tackles, 2.5 sacks, and 3.5 TFLs. So not gaudy numbers, nothing crazy impressive, but SEC. Remember that. That's one of many selling points here on Cam Riley is he played for an SEC school. More often than not, when you have the opportunity to bring in a guy with a multitude of SEC experience, it's probably going to pan out pretty decently for you. So, Kenton, you mentioned the size. Cam Riley's a 6'5" linebacker, about 240 pounds. With that frame, I'd have to imagine Tony Gibson saw his metrics here and said, yeah, I'll find a spot for him. We can put him somewhere he can run around a little bit, hit somebody. So it's still much too early to determine, I guess, what a floor and ceiling is for Cam Riley here at NC State. But if absolutely nothing else, he's a very quality depth piece. And that's something that this linebacking core did still need to have addressed. On some level, he will contribute to the defense here in 2024. So I think this is a good pickup for the Wolfpack.
Yeah, for sure. And the reality is when you talk about a guy this size, right, to me, What's more important than SEC is the measurables on this young man, because you look at him, if you watch his film, you say he always seems to be close, but there's just something missing. It seems like he doesn't exactly know where he's supposed to be all the time. And that's not a knock on him. It's sometimes as a linebacker, if you aren't taught how to properly read keys, or if you aren't taught, this is a play they like to go to in this situation, this is what you'll see in this situation, you can find yourself out there guessing and looking a little wrong if you're not, fully confident in your technique. But with a linebacking coach specialist like Gibson behind him, I'm telling you, that little half step where it's like, you're almost there, just keep coming, it closes very quickly, because the athleticism, the ability to move, the ability to be the big body. The reality is, at 240 pounds, there are some edge rushers that are listed as that. I can tell you right now, Red Hibbler, as we got late in the season, looked like he was about 240. So you're looking at a situation where there's a lot of young men. There's a lot of young men to do with whatever is needed for this defense, because at the end of the day, like you said, at worst, you're looking at a great depth piece here. At best, I want to see what the ceiling is on this young man and how good things can get.
I don't think it's a secret that the portion of the defense that needs the most attention coming into 2024 is that linebacking core. I have a ton of confidence in the defensive line with what they return. I have a ton of confidence in the DBs and what they return, especially Aiden White. I still don't know if the significance has been stated enough that Aiden White is back here in Raleigh. So I feel good about the DBs. Losing Peyton Wilson and losing Jalen Scott, you are losing your top two tacklers coming into this season. So they need as much of a makeover, I guess you could say, as they could get. They have the JUCO man in Wyatt Wright. I think he's probably going to play a pivotal role. Maybe some freshmen could step up and see some playing time. Of course, you still have Devon Betty as well. So the linebacking core needed to continue to add these pieces. Oh, not to mention Sean Brown. Obviously, we talked about him last week. Sean Brown moving down to the linebacking position as well.
He's our leading returning tackler.
Yeah, that's right. That's a piece that's getting plugged into the linebacking core as well. To get to where we want to go in 2024, this linebacking core has to take a big step up and really produce at a high level. We've already talked enough about what we lost, and so that leaves a pretty sizable void that needs to be filled. And so Cam Riley's a good addition. Sean Brown, I think, will excel at the linebacker position, but this is something that really needs to develop here as we get through the spring.
Yeah, and this is, again, you never go wrong with more talented pieces. That's never going to be a problem, especially on the defensive side of the ball, where if guys are going balls to the wall, you can only get 4 or 5 plays max out of your front 7 guys, maybe 6 or 7. But after that, you're likely going to need some subs in this 3-3-5 where guys are attacking, coming downhill, going all over the place.
Obviously, a lot more spring football content coming down the road as spring football practice does officially start today on Tuesday. We're excited to talk some spring football leading up into that spring game in April. We've said it several different times, probably the most anticipated spring game in NC State history. But the road to Charlotte and the ACC Championship, where we want to get to, that starts today. So very important day, very important pickup. Coming up next, we're touching on baseball, picking up a road win out in Hawaii over the weekend, after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first sponsor of the day is FanDuel. The wait is almost over for our state of North Carolina. Every time I say almost over, there's still a couple weeks left. We're getting so close. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, is coming to our state. Just 2 more weeks of anticipation. On March 11th, we'll finally be able to bet on all of our favorite teams in all of our favorite sports. And with FanDuel, there's tons of ways for us to get in on the action. You can bet on anything from money line to over-unders to which team will make a little noise in this year's March Madness. This all comes on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. I highly recommend FanDuel if you are going this route. Plus, with live betting, you can even pick which player will put up the next bucket, and maybe even the one after that. See for yourself why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon so you can be the first to know when FanDuel goes live in North Carolina. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Middle portion of our Tuesday show, a little bit of a recap from over the weekend. Baseball flew all the way out to the islands and played a 3-game series against Hawaii. They took the series 2 out of 3, but not to say it wasn't eventful in the process. They won on Friday night 17-12. A football game actually broke out in Hawaii. They dropped the Saturday contest 7-5. They lost a late lead. That was a tough one to stomach before winning and taking the series on Sunday by a score of 10-8. Now, I'll kind of just breeze through the overall summarization of the weekend. A whole lot of walks. They had 29 walks in 26 innings. Now, can't sugarcoat that because it's not good. However, I will make a note here in that I've noticed that the majority of the pitching they're using are all young arms. A lot of freshmen are getting early run here through the first couple weekends. And I'm not going to say I know what the coaching staff is doing because obviously they know a whole lot more than I do. But something I think I've figured out here is they want the young guys to come in and get as much experience as they can. I believe in these series that you feel that you can just win outright offensively. You trust your bats enough that the young guys can come in, maybe struggle a little bit, but you can still pull out the win in the end because that's kind of how these games are going. They're at times a bit too high scoring for some liking. There's obviously way too many walks. A couple late leads have been kind of tossed around carelessly, I guess I should say. And yet we're still winning the series. Obviously, you take 2 out of 3 from VCU, 2 out of 3 from Hawaii. So I'm content with winning the games, obviously. Not to say there's plenty still to work on, but you're winning the games. And in a football sense, I equate this back when Kent and I talked about in the VMI game, a guy like a Brandon Cisse came in and got kind of worked on a little bit late in that game, but he got better for it. And so that's what I look at these young pitchers are doing now. They might struggle a tad out the gate, but it's going to make them better down the road once these games get into ACC play and things heat up a bit. So a lot to take in over the weekend, but I'm more than happy with the series win.
You know, you took the words right out of my mouth, and I'm really upset that this is how you know me and Grayson don't do enough pre-production because I was going to use that exact example.
Were you?
Without VMI Brandon Cisse, you don't get Miami Brandon Cisse.
Exactly.
That was a totally different and better player, but that's what we're looking at here, right? We're talking about starting the young guys and bringing the older guys out of the arm barn or bullpen or whichever you prefer to call it these days. You know, you're talking about running that type of rotation, and it's a good thing to see because those young guys are getting the experience. But more important than that, they're learning, okay, maybe I can't paint the black as well as I thought. Maybe I do need to, you know, maybe stick with this pitch or that pitch and not try to show that I got a deep bag of 4 or 5 pitches, stick to the 2 or 3 that I'm amazing at and rock out with that. You know, and these moments need to happen in games like these. Like you said, you can win them with just sheer offensive firepower. But I want to take this a step further and say, if you're talking about starting these young guys so they can get the experience and all that, I completely understand. But you also got to understand the layer of keeping the older guys fresh.
It's true.
For the games that do matter, for the games where we're like, hey, this is an important sequence in conference.
No, I think that's a great point, and it kind of alludes to what happened on Saturday night when they lost 7-5. And I thought the bullpen management late in that game was a little iffy, and I think in that scenario, I would have gone to a more veteran guy to get you out of that hole, especially when some of these veteran bullpen guys have still not seen any playing time yet, and you've completed now 2 entire series. So I understand getting the young guys in. I do think, honestly, it is a good method because not only will it make you better down the road this season, but of course the next couple seasons as well. But switching gears into the offense, because that has been what is winning these games, I've been very impressed with first baseman Garrett Pennington. Eli Serrano, a little bit of a slow start last weekend against VCU, came on strong this weekend against Hawaii. Josh Hogue, newcomer in the outfield. I think he's a very consistent bat. Notice he's moved up into the 2 hole in that lineup. I think that's a really good spot for him. I wouldn't be surprised to see him sit there for quite a while as the season transpires. But the offense as a whole, it hasn't been super explosive, but it's been consistent enough to put enough firepower out there that, like I said, you can maybe tinker around a little bit on the mound, but know that you still have what it takes to get the win. And so I think you really saw that take place over the weekend. Like I mentioned, still certainly a lot to work on the mound. I think defensively as well, just a couple things to shore up as the season goes on. I have confidence that they will, but going all the way out to Hawaii and winning that series is really not a very easy thing to do. They split the series the weekend before with Ole Miss, an SEC team. So Hawaii has shown the ability to play some solid baseball against premier competition. So I'm proud of the guys. That's a hard trip to go out there and win the series. I thought it was a little bit funny that Game 3 ended due to travel curfew, as Hawaii was kind of making a run to make that a game again. But nonetheless, we won the game, coming back to Raleigh with the series win. Really can't ask for a whole lot more than that.
I've been to Hawaii, and they got the 2 W's that'll get you distracted every time, okay? Beautiful weather and beautiful women. And yet somehow this team kept their focus enough to get it done. No, but in all seriousness, though, you were talking about the offense lacking that pop and not having guys just knocking it over the fence a ton. I also think that that's a good thing. Teams with the ability to manufacture runs oftentimes have better end results than teams that are very reliant on the long ball, right? Like, that's just the reality, because if you're manufacturing runs, that means that everybody is coming together to make it happen. Your batters are disciplined and knowing, hey, this is what this this is what the umpire is giving us as a strike zone. I need to know what I need to swing at. I need to know what I can go ahead and sit on and potentially get on base that way. And that is much harder to take away or go cold to than, we got these 3 guys that anytime they make contact with it, that thing could be a moonshot, right? It's a very different scenario. So I think that offense by committee is definitely something you love to see for Pac-9.
And shout out to freshman Jake Bechtel, hit his first collegiate home run. It was actually his first collegiate hit. I saw that he was getting the start on Saturday night, and I tweeted that I've been harboring some Jake Bechtel stock for quite some time. Maybe I shouldn't have done that because now some more people want some of that, but I'm very excited for Jake Bechtel's future here at NC State, whether it is, later in this season or probably next year where I think he really takes off. But it was good to see a young guy step up in that spot and make a little bit of noise out on the island. So overall, good series win. They have a midweek this week against Queens. Really couldn't tell you where that's located. And then they have Towson coming into Raleigh this weekend. But looking forward to this baseball team continuing their slow burn and bringing these new guys up and getting them rolling as the season goes on. Up next, we're going to round out our Tuesday episode with our round ball roundup, a bit of a summary of how NC State basketball went over the weekend after a quick word from our sponsors. Our second sponsor of the day is Gametime. Gametime is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes all the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect upon arrival. Their all-in prices show your total upfront, so you know you're getting a great deal before you check out, and you can buy tickets in just seconds with only a number of taps. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts, making it the place to find last-minute ticket deals. And the Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less on another site, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Rounding out our Tuesday show with a little round ball roundup from this past weekend. Men's basketball got the win over Boston College by a score of 81-70. And honestly, it just felt good to win one, respectfully. I mean, you bring in a Boston College team coming into Raleigh. This is a game that NC State should frankly dominate, and they did. They took care of business. It was a relatively stress-free game, and they really needed one of these after these last couple weeks. So that was nice to have. I thought the scoring efforts were very spread out. DJ Horn got to take a load off and divvy out the workload a little bit, as scoring was pretty balanced across everyone that played. I believe we had 4 different guys in double figures. It was a good win. I'm not sure there's so much you can really take from it moving forward. Obviously, you have Florida State tonight. We're in Tallahassee before you see the Dirty Foot Club on Saturday. But overall, it was just good to win one. That's really how I feel about it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this season has been underwhelming to say the least. And so you got to appreciate those little slivers of joy when you get them.
And now switching gears over to the women's team, and they're struggling a little bit right now. Obviously, they had the disappointing loss to the Dirty Foot Club near the end of last week, went on the road to Duke on Sunday and dropped that contest as well. So back-to-back losses against anyone is tough. But when it's back-to-back losses against the other 2 prominent schools on Tobacco Road, that's a tough pill to swallow. They lost to Duke by a score of 69-58. And honestly, it felt a lot like the loss to UNC in that they just never really had it. As soon as the game started, it just couldn't quite formulate it early on, and that kind of trickled out into the rest of the game as well. Duke played well, NC State did not, and that's really the main story there.
Don't hit the panic button. Again, I hate to be the guy that keeps reminding people of this. This team is top 15 in the country, and they were picked to finish 8th in the conference.
Right.
Let's relax. Let's trust that Wes Moore is going to figure it out, and these ladies are going to figure it out, because at the end of the day, I know that you want to be peaking right now, but if they go into the tournament and get hot, or if they get hot from this game forward, who will really remember? This team could lose out the rest of these games. If they end up in the Final Four, nobody's going to be like, oh, my God, what a terrible season. We got bounced in the first round of the ACC tournament, or, oh, my God, what a terrible season. We lost to the Dirty Foot Club. I told y'all, that empty stadium, it gives an advantage. It gives an advantage because you can hear the plays so clearly. It's like she's right there next to you, calling it. You know, I'm just saying.
I tell you what, it's honestly a little bit of a blessing to be so frustrated over back-to-back losses and they fall out of the top 10. And everybody says, well, what in the world is going on with this women's basketball team? Because they've been so consistently dominant for a span of these years now.
And remember where they were last year.
Yes.
Remember where they were last year.
Exactly. And so to have a problem where we're worried about a team that is still 12th in the country, it's a good problem to have. Now, they are on a little bit of a skid. I don't necessarily expect that to continue, although they do have a tough matchup on Thursday against Syracuse. But the 1 seed dream, maybe that ship has sailed. But again, you look at the preseason expectations and you look at what they have accomplished during this season. There's still a lot to stand on, to be proud of, but there's still work to do. So yeah. I fully expect them to rally the troops. They'll regroup. They'll refocus, and I would bet that they'll be ready to go on Thursday night.
That's a good bet to take, and that Syracuse team, much improved in such a short time. I'm excited to see how this one pans out and how this team bounces back.
That'll do it for us here on Tuesday. As always, thank you all so much for joining us. Appreciate you all bearing with us over the last couple days, couple changes, but we got everything settled out now. Be sure to drop your comments in the comment box. We're going to have a ton to choose from for this week's Fan Friday. We've got to play a little bit of catch up from last week, so be sure to get your thoughts down in the comment box, read and respond to all of those as we always do. And if you have not already, mash that subscribe button. We are still 3 subscribers away from 1,400. So looking forward to passing that and then moving beyond. We will see you all tomorrow. Until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.